Well guys, it's the end of 2020 and now is the time to go through this year's many award winners. All of us will be glad to see the back of 2020, but I have noticed many people are holding back from telling the world how much they are looking forward to 2021 and how it will be a great year. But with all that is going on, we have swelled the nominations or contenders for our Shit Weasels of the Year awards. I say shit weasels because oh my days, there is a lot of them this year. I mean, it is that bad at the end of the day. I could just sit here and say everyone is a shit weasel of the year and be done with it just like that. It would be on another level of lazy, but still accurate, as everyone in positions of power have acted like snivelling shit weasels for the past 12 months consistently. Shit, even Joe Public stands a chance at winning this award because 2020 should be known as the year of the sheeple. The UK and many other nations' populations have fallen into line like good little sheeple. The governments say jump, they say it is really pathetic and a bit like Jo Swinson claiming she would win the 2019 election that has obviously aged well. But I'd say enough chat, the conditions for winning one of these awards are simple as most will know. All our nominations had to do was act in a way against the people they claim to represent, lie, cheat and steal, or just generally act like a dirty snivelling shitweasel. A journalist or the media in general is a good example of this. Now, of course, I won't be able to award everyone today that deserves it. The video would be about 10 hours long, and I would end up with a throat like Carrie Simmons' axe wound after Boris Johnson has cucked her out to the entire climate change lobby. Of course, at her own insistence, because I am willing to bet she likes to make him watch her get belt-fed sausage as she has passed around 20 old rich men like a crack pipe. So when deciding, I had to be selective based on the names you either voted for or commented on my community posts, which actually topped well over 1,700 comments, so a fair few of them. But I will say, all names listed by you guys, even if I missed them, are worthy winners of this year's awards. But I guess that's enough foreplay, let's get balls deep into 2020's Shitweasel of the Year awards. Now, they will be in no particular order because they're all winners or losers in my mind, and to be honest, there are so many I'm stuck for choice at the top. Actually, you lot can decide who is the ultimate snivelling shitweasel of the year in the comments below. Now, first up for Shitweasel of the Year award is none other than me. I deserve this award for YouTube verifying the channel 2 days ago, obviously making me a great checkmark shitweasel, but slightly more spicy than your average shitweasel, I guess. I'm really not sure though who is working for YouTube and thought, you know what, let's give a checkmark tick to this gobshite because I actually expected a permaban, not a verified badge, let me tell you that. Maybe whoever did it is a viewer of the channel or just trolling lefty snowflakes, but either way, me having that tick makes me a shitweasel in my own mind, so on the list I go. Some I expect will be happy with this one. Up next, we have the UK police force or Boris Johnson's brown shirts. They have had a year to forget obviously by enforcing Boris Johnson's lunatic decrees. Two-tier policing when they cuck to BLM, destroying statues but attack the working class and of course veterans trying to defend the statues, because obviously the police and politicians wouldn't do it. But to top it off, in recent weeks and months we have seen the disgusting treatment of lockdown protesters, while they actively cover up grooming gangs and ignore actual crimes like Greater Manchester Police did recently, 80,000 if I remember right. So I would say the police 100% deserve their spot this year after many supported them against BLM before they spat it back in our faces. At this point, they are a fucking embarrassment, and their embarrassment leads us on to our next winner for this year's Shitweasel of the Year award, which is none other than the Home Office and pretty piss poor Patel, who as you all know has shown herself and the government department to be completely useless and actually working against the interests of the public. Under her watch, illegal immigration has spiked to embarrassing levels, while they did their best to whitewash and cover up the grooming gang report that the British public demanded be released in full. Add to that her support of Boris Johnson's lunatic policies this year, it was a fucking given that she would be on this list alongside the Home Office. What a disappointing trout she has been to many who thought she would actually do more than just talk shit. But next up, we might as well deal with Bojo the blonde clown. This prize-winning prat got elected last year on promises to do this and that, but in the end fucked us over with the CCP style of government we have seen since March. Lockdowns criminalising people for wanting to see their families and ruling by decree while stuffing the pockets of Tory party friends makes this cunt well worth being on this list. I am sure he is probably the biggest disappointment to many this year, so like I said, true snivelling shitweasel of the year award is going to this tosspot, much like it will with the person who is up next. That is none other than Matt Headcock. Sorry, I mean Matt Hancock. You all knew he would be on here simply based on what has gone on this year. He is the most untrustworthy looking shitweasel I think I have ever seen, and comes out with complete and utter bollocks, as do many other MPs it seems, which obviously means to be personally named on this is no small feat, but it is mainly for him saying herd immunity does not exist in the House of Commons, along with the usual shit that he has done and we have called him out for all year. The herd immunity bullshit was peak stupidity and deserves him to be on air alone. This is of course because the fact that he is pushing with all his might to get the vaccines rolled out to give herd immunity, obviously showing us Ian Blackford levels of contradiction and stupidity. But like Boris, the lies, scheming and diktats put out by this worm means he has to make the list and is there with the worst of them if you ask me. And now a popular one voted for by you guys yourselves. We are of course talking about the media machine. All are included in this because doing their own awards would take too long, and at this point they are all part of the same agenda, so two cheeks of the same shit-cupboard arseholes in almost every way. We can call out the governments for becoming authoritarian scumbags who lie to the population simply to continue their farcical bullshit, but it would get nowhere if the media wasn't remaining silent. We have seen all this before, remember, with swine flu, but it got stopped in its tracks much earlier by an actual impartial media that we had at the time. Clearly now, the media is fully bought and paid for, so we'll parrot the line to keep the money flowing in. But obviously, they also deserve a place on this list for their anti-British woke bullshit that we call out often on the internet. So I'm sure most of you would agree that the media in general deserve this award of Shitweasel of the Year. But next up, we're going to have the BBC themselves, who will get their own award as the national broadcaster. They have had a terrible year, and that is saying something for this year and the BBC in general. Their complicity in this whole shit show goes without saying, but to top it off, they have ring-fenced £100 million of licence fee money to create shows they consider to be inclusive. But anyone with half a brain cell would consider racist, as they focus solely on hiring black and ethnic minorities over white people. We also had their favourable coverage of the BLM riots, calling them mostly peaceful protests, despite the article itself being about 27 injured coppers. And following on from all of that, they actually attempted to cancel Rule Britannia and Land of Hope and Glory at the proms, as you might remember. And this is literally just naming a few of their crimes against this country and its people this year. I could literally sit here all day shit-talking the BBC, as you all know, but I would say beyond any doubt that they deserve a Shitweasel of the Year award, as they do every year. Now next up is the Parliament as a whole, led by Boris Johnson and Sir Keir Starmer, who both, it seems, run this country because we have no opposition at all, and 99% of MPs in Parliament support the bullshit that Boris Johnson is doing right now. So I would say they also deserve a spot under Boris Johnson, of course. Though as you know, he's already won his own award as it is, so this one will go to the Parliament, but he still leads it. The way they have all acted, if you ask me, makes them one of the ultimate snivelling shitweasels of the year, day, week, month, whatever you wanna call it. So much for fucking draining the swamp, hey? Now next up is none other than Sadiq Khan, the stone cold loser, still occupying the Mayor of London role despite not being elected to lead it this year. I am sure his award won't be shocking to anyone at all. As we all know, this toad has spent the year, much like other years, destroying London, bankrupting TfL, letting kids get stabbed in the street and generally virtue signalling his life away, with non-stop race-baiting bullshit and party political statements trying to one-up Boris the bullshitter. His support for BLM vandals destroying London says it all really though, but either way, he was a dead cert for Shitweasel of the Year, let's be honest. Now next up, we have BLM themselves, of course, the so-called anti-racist movement that has no place in the UK whatsoever, and at this point is likely the most racist group in the country. Naturally though, they are supported by the media and political elites. In fact, I would bet they are actually paid by them, so technically in with all the other scumbags. They destroyed statues, as you know, attacked people in the streets, and generally caused mayhem, based on bullshit fed to them by the media, of course. And then let's not forget, they've also set back race relations decades for some people, while most just ignored it as the bullshit it was. But on that basis, BLM deserves to be in here, as do all other left-wing groups like Antifa or Extinction Rebellion. So actually, you know what, we will lump them all in together as one of our shitweasels of the year. Fucking scumbags all, is all I'm gonna say on that. Next up, we have the NGOs, Bill Gates Foundation, its owners, his wives, along with anyone involved in it. These meddling bunch of tosspots have their hands wrist deep in all this bullshit, pushing governments to do as they demand, like most NGOs do at this point. Bill Gates is about as trusted among the average everyday person as Jeremy Corbyn was by the public last year, and the same is true for most of these people we are talking about. They have no place or right to speak on national issues, and all they have done throughout their lives makes them worthy of a place here today, along with family industry and anybody that's involved in their little schemes. But moving on nicely from them fuck pigs, we have Klaus Schwab, the worthless tosspot from the World Economic Forum, pushing his fourth industrial revolution and Great Reset bullshit. Despite obviously, like the previous ones, no cunt electing him to do anything, and most people who know him thinking he's a slimy rich toad they wouldn't piss on if he was on fire. But remember guys, you will own nothing and be happy about it according to this twat. If that was all he had said, it would be enough for me to venture him onto this list. But given what he is pushing in general, he is without doubt a winner of Shit Weasel of the Year, along with the WEF. Now next up, we have the UK scientists, or SAGE as they are called, including Witty Valance and of course Ferguson, who likes to go round belt feeding other people's wife the pork sword, despite the fact that he should have no credibility outside of the sheep who thinks he wants to save their lives. They've all been caught out lying so many times now it's unreal, and Ferguson should never have been involved given his track record on predictions. But on top of that, they got caught out within 1 hour of using cherry-picked data to lock us all down in November, and keeping the perpetual fear-mongering going by always finding new ways to force the weak, pussy-whipped Boris Johnson into doing their bidding. To be honest, there's not much more to say on SAGE really. Their actions make them worthy winners of Shit Weasel of the Year, and I actually expect we will see them again in 2021, making their way onto this list. Now next up, we should probably deal with the virtue signalling footballers taking a knee, along with the Premier League and FA that have allowed or taken part in the virtue signalling race baiting bullshit by promoting BLM. As we've seen, players have knelt on the floor like cucks to a political movement when before they was banned from wearing the poppy as it was claimed to be political. But on top of that, when fans finally come back to the stadiums and booed the players and football clubs, they actually started attacking them in the press and wondering if they could ban them from the grounds. So in my opinion, worthy winners of Shit Weasel of the Year. Now next up should be the US media, election security and Democratic Party under Joe Biden for the free and fair election that we just witnessed over in the States. Countless suspicious activities are now considered fake news, and remember, we must count every vote, even if it came from a limp-dick dog or some 200-year-old dead guy, making them 100% Shit Weasels of the Year without question in my mind. But once again, moving on nicely from that, we have the Silicon Valley tech companies and their censorious bullshit this year, surpassing anything we have seen before. Facebook, Twitter and YouTube, among others, have shut down speech on so many topics, and it is beyond disgusting. There is no single platform that I can pick out as the worst because they have all done it consistently. So on that basis, they can all sit here together with an award for Shit Weasel of the Year. Now, moving on like a fart in the wind, we have Gary Lineker, BBC host and virtue signalling tosspot extraordinaire. He made the list this year for his anti-British virtue signalling tribe spewed out on Twitter consistently. The BLM bullshit was a perfect example of this. Him and many other football players called counter-BLM protesters Nazis for raising their hands when chanting, as all football fans do. He would obviously know this as an ex-football player, but naturally had some virtue signalling to do on Twitter. But on top of that, he is also one terribly overpaid shitweasel, not worth a wet wank on a Sunday morning, who topped off his great year by inviting a heavily vetted migrant to come and stay at his home, where he made out it was for a long stay, but in reality, I think the guy was just there for a few hours, proving it was no more than a good bit of PR for woke Twitter. Them reasons and everything else he does means he had to make 2020's Shitweasel of the Year awards. Next up though, we have Lewis I Hate My Mother Because She Is White Hamilton. This virtue signalling BLM tosspot won the F1 World Championship again, but his feats on the track are overshadowed by him pushing his politics onto the world when no one gives a fuck. He even tried to make other drivers kneel to BLM, but when they refused he got salty and did a little interview on it, something that I actually covered. This man, I'm sure you would agree, is an embarrassment to everyone and rightly wins a Shitweasel of the Year award for 2020. Next up though is the NHS, or National Half-Arse Service. You know, the thing we all pay through the nose for, an institution that was loved by many before they had failed in their duty of care to the British people, by refusing them cancer treatments among many others to focus on the Rona, costing us thousands of lives that will continue for many years now. And obviously, if that wasn't good enough, we had videos popping up of doctors and nurses taking part in intricate dancing videos that looked well choreographed. Of course, when people are supposed to be dying down the halls or are told to stay away from the hospitals because they are so busy, the staff are run off their feet. This fucking embarrassment was always going to make it into Shitweasel of the Year, and is not far from the #1 spot in my own mind. There is too many to choose from when it comes to #1 if you ask me though. I would suggest the NHS dancing doctors and nurses is probably well up there. As a matter of fact, I might even call it that. Now, this next one won't surprise any of you. It is, of course, the CCP, or Chinese Communist Party, for being themselves and, to be honest, doing exactly as I would expect them to do. They have obviously fucked up the world with the help of many others, including the WHO, who can be lumped in with them actually. Because as we all know, and I've said before, they are now the Chinese Health Organization, lying to the world, and I bet continuing to do so now. There is really not much more that needs to be said about these winners here. The CCP and the WHO are without doubt shitweasels of the year for 2020, possibly up there with the very best of them. Next up though, we have the piss-poor Labour Party and so-called opposition to the government, though I am yet to see them oppose anything this year under Captain Hindsight. As you know, they have backed Boris Johnson's bullshit throughout while trying to score cheap political points when they can, thinking it will help them get elected next time round. Of course, that's just a fantasy. Even with this disastrous Tory government fucking everything up, the anti-British Labour Party are unelectable for a large part of the British public. So for them reasons, and many others, they make it into Shitweasel of the Year without any doubt. Now, as I alluded to earlier, there is a special winners award that should go to the British people, or should I say sheeple, for obviously going along with Boris Johnson's bullshit making you wear masks to save you from a virus because biohazard suits are just fashion accessories in laboratories. Funnily enough, most of the people doing that and defending Boris Johnson right now are actually FPBE losers. You know, the Ramonin tosspots who claim to hate him so much. But still, the mindless drones need to wake the fuck up and smell the bullshit before it hits them in the face. Not thinking for yourself, in my mind, is snivelling shitweasel behaviour beyond any doubt, so I have to put them on the list for Shitweasel of the Year. When, as I've said before, this should only be for people in positions of power or influence. But the general public at large can influence a piss-poor government and the media to actually do what they should be. Hopefully one day soon, that will happen. Now, as we approach the end of our award show, we really cannot forget His Royal Wokeness the Prince of Soy and his lefty spunk trumpet for their constant virtue signalling, hypocritical behaviour and delusions of grandeur. Be it their cringe-inducing podcasts or lies about wanting privacy before signing said podcast deals and all sorts like that puts them back in the spotlight. In my opinion, they 100% deserve a mention this year and likely will be in it next year for good measure given the shit that they do and say on a regular basis. But now I suppose it's time for our final award today. They are not the overall winner because they are last. It's just down to the order in which I remembered the contenders, but they could well win it for some people. It is obviously none other than the Scots Nat Prats or SNP under Nicola Fishlip Sturgeon for a variety of things. Be it speech laws preventing you from saying anything spicy in your own home or lunatic lockdowns going beyond even what Boris Johnson has done, while naturally using everything from Brexit to the Rona in a bid to push for her idea of independence that anyone else would consider vassalage. Perhaps maybe more than Boris, she has failed the people of Scotland this year, as has the entire SNP political party. Of course, like everyone else, they have done much more than I have mentioned in this video, but these reasons alone are enough to warrant a place on this year's Shitweasel of the Year award show. As I've said with everyone here, there could be 1,000 other things that you could call them out for. There could also be 1,000 other contestants up in this list. As I said earlier, make sure you put down everyone you think should have been in here. Obviously, I didn't have time to actually do it. The video is already going to be fairly long.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors. Slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires. And that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going and we are glad to be going. We're off.